one for men. The first portion had all the best meat and choice entrails, while the second had only the bones and hooves. But Prometheus covered the portion of meat with the ox's stomach, making it look very unappetizing, while the bones were covered with some rich and delicious-looking fat. And when he told Zeus to choose between them, the king of the gods was deceived by the trick and chose the second portion. So the gods were left with only the bones and some fat, while mankind kept all the meat. And that neatly explained why the Greeks, whenever they sacrificed an animal to the gods in the future, ate the meat themselves and gave the gods nothing but the smell of burnt fat and bones. All the Greeks knew and loved these stories of their gods. In the very beginning, there was just one of them, the goddess Gaia. She gave birth to Uranos, who then mated with his own mother and produced children. This is a little easier to understand when we know that Gaia is the Greek word for earth, and Uranos means the sky. So this is a myth about how the world came into being. Earth and sky were joined together and gave birth to a race of gods. After a terrible war between them, Zeus became king over all of them. Zeus was not the best-behaved god that anyone might dream up. Apart from a tendency to fits of rage when he would hurl thunderbolts at whoever had offended him, he also felt entitled to have any sea nymph, river nymph, wood nymph, or mere mortal woman that took his fancy. And as time went by, the world gradually filled up with his children to prove it. Out of all the many gods, there were 12 who were the most important and lived in the home of the gods on Mount Olympus. There was Zeus, of course, and his wife Hera, who was also his sister. Zeus's many amorous escapades kept Hera in a permanent frenzy of jealousy, and she spent much of her time making life a misery for the various objects of his affection. The other gods all had their special influence in the world. Ares was the god of war, Artemis, goddess of hunting and childbirth. Hephaestus was in charge of fire and metalworking. Aphrodite was the goddess of love, Apollo the god of prophecy and music, and so on. There were also 2 brothers of Zeus who were very powerful but had their home elsewhere, not on Mount Olympus. Poseidon was the lord of the sea, and Hades ruled as king of the dead in the underworld. We can see from how Zeus and Hera behaved that the Greeks gave their gods some very human qualities. Greek gods are very much like ordinary people, only with special powers, and of course they live forever. In many of the myths, they watch while mortals are fighting or wooing each other, and then step in to give a helping hand or trip them up, depending on whose side they are taking. Of all their myths, the one that everyone knew best was the story of the Trojan War, in which the Greeks went to the city of Troy to win back Helen, wife of King Menelaus of Sparta. After fighting for 10 years, they took the city by a trick, pretending to sail home but leaving behind a great horse made of wood, which the Trojans foolishly dragged into their city. Hiding inside it were Greek soldiers, who at the dead of night opened the gates of the city to let in the rest of the Greek army. The Greeks knew the story of Troy from the poet Homer, whose Iliad is a great long epic on the subject. Though we don't know exactly when it was composed, a fair estimate is sometime around 700 BCE. Homer was the earliest of all the Greek poets, and to every generation that followed he remained an object of awe and reverence. When anyone wanted to make a point about anything, they always felt happier if they could add a line or two from Homer as an example of what they meant. Homer was their guide for how to behave, their memory of the distant past, and not least he was quoted for the sheer beauty and power of his poetry. It's been said that to the Greeks he was like the Bible and Shakespeare rolled into one. No one knows exactly who Homer was or exactly when he lived. In very early times, poems were made to be performed in public, not read from a book.